Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Get things rolling here with some LSU football. Joe Sloan met with the media back on Wednesday, and I thought had a lot of interesting things to say. We talked about a good bit of it yesterday as far as the running game goes, and I gave you a lot of my thoughts on LSU's running game last year, which quite frankly wasn't very good when it needed to be. It was really bad against Florida State. It was really bad against Alabama. It was really bad against Texas A&M. Watching the game in real time bore that out, and the statistics certainly showed that as well. And I talked yesterday about how there is a new plan with the running game to be, and I hesitate to use the word traditional anymore because what does that even mean? No one's getting in the veer. Nobody's running the power I at this point. But I use traditional in the sense that you're handing the ball to the running back. That's traditional, as opposed to the quarterback kind of doing his own thing and doing it really, really well. And so I thought that was an interesting piece to get to on yesterday's show, but I wanted to get to a little bit of the passing game when we talk about today's show. And I think a good bit of that goes into the coaching staff that they've got on the offensive side of the ball, because you've got to, I certainly wouldn't call it a power struggle, but there's a dynamic at the top of this food chain with Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton, where those two guys were both kind of elevated, but basically Sloan is at the top here. And you certainly got Brad Davis, who's done a great job with the offensive line, but Sloan spoke to the offensive staff and just how confident he is in this group that Brian Kelly has assembled.
You know, it starts with really upstairs with the cohesion that we've really developed on offense with our offensive staff. We got a lot of continuity over the last couple of years, and then the guys who have added in, it's been an unbelievable mix. A lot of guys bringing great thought, great ideas, and just bringing so much to the table. And I think that carries over to the players, the time that we have together as an offensive staff and how we interact with each other.
And the players have got to be the guys who go do it. And Garrett Nussmeier is chief among those who have got to go do it. And I think that pretty much everyone who is an LSU fan feels really good about Garrett Nussmeier. Now, that's common. Folks that have never really been in the line of fire and have never had to produce under the toughest circumstances, and those who don't have mistakes that we've actually witnessed are those that the fans like the most. Go ask the Tennessee fans how they feel about Nico. High-quality recruit, hadn't played very much, hadn't made any mistakes. They think he is fantastic. And that's kind of the way things are here with Garrett Nussmeier, and we'll see if either one of those guys are great players. But right now, I think everybody feels pretty good about it, and there's good reason to. Garrett Nussmeier has shown some real flashes of talent. He played very well, I thought, in the bowl game. Certainly led a drive that was really impressive to win that game back on January 1st. And now it's his opportunity to take the reins of the entire offense. And Joe Sloan talk about his first-year starting quarterback.
He processes information really quickly, and then he has the arm talent to get it to that place, and the creativity, right? The growth over the last several years, and just being process-oriented. That's what I've been really proud of him. He's been really focused on his process. He's been focused on little things and allowing the big things to happen. That's been really the things that I've enjoyed watching him, and then I've watched him grow as a leader this offseason, and how he's really been able to let it happen naturally and let his work speak for itself, but also be the vocal leader right when he needs to be. But we're going to put him in positions to use that arm, to use his decision-making ability. But, you're going to see a lot of the same things, and then we're always going to build it around our personnel. But I think you're seeing our offense start to come together around him schematically.
There's no question that Joe Sloan and Garrett Nussmeier have a really good relationship. While Mike Denbrock has moved on, and it's technically a new offensive coordinator calling plays and running the show, it's not like this guy's new to the program. He obviously was the quarterback's coach the last couple of years, and Garrett Nussmeier has taken to him, and they've got a really, really good working relationship, and the two of them got an opportunity to really showcase that in the month of December leading up to the bowl game, where Mike Denbrock was already gone and Jaden Daniels had decided not to play, and it was all of a sudden, okay, Joe Sloan and Garrett Nussmeier, here's your ball game. Go get it. And Sloan spoke to his relationship with Garrett.
Honesty and straightforwardness is the best way, right? And that's what we're always going to do within this program. Coaching's about relationships and trust. And Garrett and my conversation back and forth, and Coach Kelly's conversation with him, and throughout our organization, we're honest with where he was, excited about the talent and potential that he has and who he is as a player. And I'm assuming he felt himself getting better, right? And he said, as I'm getting better and I got an opportunity, I think you've heard it. I think this place means a lot to him. His teammates mean a lot to him, and that was important to him. So I'm proud of him for that fact, and proud of how he's worked, and I'm excited for him.
I'm going to get to the wide receivers and tight ends here in a second, but let's stay on quarterback here for the time being. And I've never been in a position group with the football team. That was a little beyond 8th grade football where I stopped. But I understand that there are dynamics at play in those position rooms. I work pre and post game with a guy who adored everyone in his defensive backs group. That's Brandon Taylor. He played with Morris Claiborne and Eric Reed and Craig Lawson and Tyron Matthew and Patrick Peterson. All those guys were really close, Ron Brooks, and it was a really close-knit group. Marlon Favorite feels the same way about his defensive line guys, Ricky Jean-Francois, obviously Glenn Dorsey, Claude Rote, Tyson Jackson. I mean, they were best of buds. But oftentimes, the sense is from the outside that quarterback rooms can be a little bit testy. Now, you certainly didn't see that with Joe Burrow and Miles Brennan. It doesn't apply there. It didn't happen last year with Garrett Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels. But now you've got a situation where you've got Ricky Collins, who's been at LSU for a year and is a hometown guy, and you've got A.J. Swan, who they brought in really to compete with Ricky Collins. In my estimation, A.J. Swan was not brought in to compete with Garrett Nussmeier. He was brought in to compete with Ricky Collins, and that's an interesting spot. And we've watched those two guys work, and by my eye, which is very much untrained, I feel like Ricky Collins has had a really nice start to the camp, and A.J. Swan has had a few more bumps in the roads. And then you've certainly got Colin Hurley, who is 17 years old, barely, and is kind of the guy at the bottom of the food chain looking up. But Joe Sloan spoke to kind of now the new dynamic in the quarterback room.
The camaraderie within that room and the way those guys have worked together and the way Ricky's working and the growth he's had, the way AJ's worked, the growth he's had, the things that we challenged them with after spring, you're continuing to see them elevate. And Colin Hurley with his talent and his intelligence and ability to see things and make decisions, he showed a lot throughout, his early time here of really some things for us to be really, really excited about. So I'm proud of all of them and proud of the way that group has worked together. But that's a good question, and it's definitely unique, and his story is different than maybe some others in college football today.
A lot of guys in that room that are in different spots, like I just mentioned. Garrett Nussmeier is a starter for the first time in his life. Colin Hurley is trying to figure out what living away from home is. Like, this is a brand new world for him. And then A.J. Swan is a guy who started games in the SEC, who's fighting for his backup role, and obviously Ricky Collins is doing the exact same thing. And he was where Colin Hurley was last year, looking up at two guys with more experience and more skins on the wall than he certainly had. So it's an interesting spot there, and we'll continue to monitor kind of the backup quarterback situation as we move forward. Wide receiver has been the position that I've talked about the most this week specifically. Most of that talk has had to do with Kyron Lacey, who all you know at this point I've been very, very impressed with in fall camp. But Chris Hilton has also had a great go of it early on. He looks the part of a healthy speed guy that can run routes, and he's made catches, no drops. He's been really, really good. But there are a lot of other guys there. C.J. Daniels certainly applies here. Xavier Thomas when he gets back healthy. Shelton Sampson, Aaron Anderson, Kyle Parker. Like, there are a lot of dudes jockeying for position here, and Joe Sloan talked about those wide receivers and how that's coming along, specifically the three guys at the top.
The level from maybe guys that you haven't talked about, you see elevating. When I look at Aaron Anderson and Kyle Parker and the way that they're elevating throughout camp, Shelton Sampson showed a lot of growth at some of his different opportunities. And, we've talked about Xavier and we talked about all those different guys, but I think there's more than just those three who have been doing and flashing in different ways. I'm really excited about, our couple young guys and where they can go. But Kyron, Chris, and CJ have played a lot of football, and I think they're definitely showing it, and what they've done is when they have an opportunity to make plays, we've tried to put them in position to do that. And when they've had that opportunity, I think you've seen all three of them kind of rise to the occasion.
And this is how, I can kind of decipher coach speak at this point. I think most of you can as well. He knows he needs to praise most of the guys that are on his offensive unit, and he's going to do that. And that's part of the deal, and a lot of it's coach speak and not worth digging into really deeply. But when he circles Brown at the end there and says, but Kyron, Chris, and CJ played a lot of football, those are your three. Those are your three guys right now that are on the top. Now, Xavier Thomas is hurt, and I think he'll come back. And I actually think Kyle Parker has done a great job of getting open. He's had 2 drops, which is a big deal. But he's done a good job of getting open, which is, I think he can work on the catching. But I think you can clearly see that there are 3 guys they prioritize there and that they think are the top 3 receivers. And I feel pretty good about that trio. I feel great about Kyron Lacy. I feel really good about Chris Hilton. And I think C.J. Daniels, based on his size, looks the part, over 6'2", and the production he had at Liberty, I think there's reason to believe that he's going to be a pretty good option, especially if he's the third option on this LSU passing game. But he may not be the third option, because the third option might be a tight end. In fact, that might be the second option at this point with the guys that they've got catching balls out there. Mac Markway stepped away earlier this week, but you still got Mason Taylor, Kamorian Pimpton, and of course Tradez Green. And Joe Sloan talked about potentially using multiple tight end sets to get those guys on the field.
We want to recruit players that allow us to attack a defense in so many different ways. I think you saw us last year. We had a couple of really elite players on the perimeter, and we were able to attack guys in certain ways, right? We're always going to build, though, as we continue to grow. If those guys give us an opportunity to do different things, we're going to use them, right? We're going to put them in position to be successful. You know, and obviously tight ends always are fun, right? They add a different element to the offense, especially when you have guys who can do multiple things. It's been good to watch. Everybody's got to keep getting better. We're going to keep being aggressive. We're going to be aggressive in the run game, right? We're going to attack people, and we're going to be aggressive on the perimeter. So, you know, if we need to do that in multiple different sets with multiple different people, we're going to do that.
I feel really good about LSU's passing game. Where does the passing game start? Well, it starts with the offensive line. You can have anybody back there you want. If they can't get protection, you can't play. So it's got to start up front. And while I do have questions with LSU's offensive line and their ability to run the football consistently against good fronts, I don't have concerns about pass protection. Those guys are stars in pass protection, especially out of the tackles. I think LSU's going to be fine there. That's step one. Step two, you've got an old quarterback who's in his fourth year, and I think he's going to be just fine. And I think the weapons at his disposal, although unproven to an extent, I wouldn't call Chris Hilton proven. I wouldn't call C.J. Daniels at this level proven. Mason Taylor and Kyron Lacy, sure. But I trust those guys to get open and to make catches. And so I think when you put all that together with Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton scheming things up, I think the passing game is going to be very, very good. I've been impressed with it in the camp, and I'm expecting that they kind of hit the ground running. It'll be different than it looked last year, where I promise you, they're going to punt at some point in the first half against USC, and we kind of got used to that not really happening very much. Like, they'll punt against USC in the first half at some point. It's not going to be just cruise control. But it will look good, I think. I don't think there's going to be some massive learning curve for this group. It's not like, you know, going to Mike Leach's air raid. Now, that's a bad example because of what we saw in Tiger Stadium in the first game of that at Mississippi State. But you understand that once they got beyond that, it was year one. They're trying to figure things out, and they hit a massive amount of roadblocks right after LSU. I don't think that kind of struggle's coming for this group, even though there's a lot of turnover. I think it's going to look really, really good. Really from the start, I have a lot of confidence in LSU throwing the football, and that's Joe Sloan kind of talking about it there. If you're looking for LSU football content, we tell you every single day. Find it on YouTube, Hunt on LSU. Again, that's Hunt on LSU on YouTube. All of our LSU football content right there. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.